In addition to the fact that he's deporting all of these illegal migrants, especially the ones in sanctuary cities, Trump is revoking the legal status of close to 500,000 people. Check it out. Let's find out what's going on, right?
The latest.
First, we want to talk about what's happening in the appeals court as far as, that judge that was appointed by Obama that's requiring Trump to turn around planes in the middle of the sky. Let me give you all a little bit of an update on that, and we're going to go to revoking the legal status of up to 500,000 migrants.
On the legal battle over the Trump administration's deportation flights, a federal judge telling government lawyers that Nazis during World War II got better treatment than the hundreds of Venezuelans who were flown to an El Salvador prison. Our senior national correspondent, Terry Moran, is at the White House with the latest. Terry, good morning.
Good morning. With the showdown between the president and the courts keeps intensifying, and it's reached the appeals court, where the president's claim that he has the power to deport people without any due process got a fierce grilling. The fight over President Trump's order to deport hundreds of Venezuelans is now in the hands of the U.S. Court of Appeals in Washington, and one judge is pulling no punches.
Nazis got better treatment under the Alien Enemy Act. People weren't given notice. They weren't told where they were going. Those people on those planes on that Saturday had no opportunity to file habeas or any type of action to challenge the removal.
At issue is the deportation of hundreds of alleged gang members who were flown to a notorious prison in El Salvador under the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, a law last used during World War II when Germans, Japanese, and Italians were deported, and every deportee got a hearing to challenge the government's case. Judge Patricia Millett warning about the lack of due process now.
If the government says we don't have to give process for that, then y'all could have picked me up on Saturday and thrown me on a plane, thinking I'm a member of Nicaragua, and given me no chance to protest it and say somehow it's a violation of presidential war powers for me to say, excuse me, no, I'm not. I'd like a hearing.
Trump's border czar Tom Homan firing back.
Well, first of all, it's ridiculous. It's just another example of a radical judge saying something that's just disgusting, to compare anything to the Nazis, the Holocaust. We follow the law.
President Trump is targeting the courts, calling for the impeachment of Judge James Boasberg. He's the judge who verbally ordered the government to turn the planes carrying the Venezuelans around. They weren't. The administration has accused the men without providing evidence of being violent gang members. In the appeals court, Judge Justin Walker suggested Boasberg has overstepped his authority.
Can you, standing here, give us an example of a district court injunction that enjoined a national security operation partially overseas that survived appellate review?
Now, congressional Republicans are turning up the pressure, announcing hearings on Judge Boasberg next week, as the president, Elon Musk, and other allies call for the judge's impeachment and more scrutiny of the courts. And the pressure keeps ratcheting up. The Justice Department now telling Judge Boasberg that it will invoke the state secrets privilege, and that's designed to stop the judge's inquiry into what happened when those planes took off from the United States and ended up in El Salvador. And he wants to know whether his order was disobeyed. He's already said.
I think that some of these judges have too much power to tell them to turn around a plane in the middle of the air while they're flying with no regard or no understanding as to how that could affect the people on board or the pilots or even the migrants themselves is absolutely ignorant, in my personal opinion. But in addition to that, Trump is revoking the legal status of more than 500,000 migrants. Check it out.
The Trump administration is moving to revoke the legal status of hundreds of thousands of Latin American and Haitian migrants and will urge them to self-deport. That's according to a notice posted online by the federal government. This impacts 532,000 migrants. All entered the U.S. under a Biden-era sponsorship program called CHNV, which aimed to cut down on illegal immigration at the border by providing legal avenues.
Do you guys remember when I broke down the CHNV creation by the Biden administration that allowed for people to basically come over here illegally? And this is how they had over 20,000 migrants, illegal Haitian migrants, then up here in a place like Springfield, Ohio, where they only had 40,000 people originally, and then all of a sudden their population ballooned to 60,000 people. The CHNV program, right, which basically represented, and I forgot exactly what the cities was. I know it was Nicaraguans, Venezuela. I know that that's what the N and the V was. H was for Haitians, and I'm not sure exactly what the C was for because I don't have it right in front of me right now. But CHNV was a way for Biden to basically invoke or create legislation or some kind of executive power that allowed for them to basically fly illegal migrants over here and then dump them off in the cities randomly without any kind of insight, information, or feedback from the people that's inside of those cities. That's why we then had people that was over in Aurora. That's why we had people that was in Springfield. That's why you seen people over in these small towns, and then all of a sudden they had jobs, even though people didn't have any employment inside of those towns. Is it Cubans? It was Cubans. So Cubans, Haitians, Venezuelans, and Nicaragua, right? And I did a whole show breaking down exactly what it meant and why they were leveraging that to continue to fly and get people over here. And they were basically giving them free flights over into the United States of America and dumping them in small towns. And they were all over the United States of America. Well, Trump basically said, listen, you guys did not come in the way that you were supposed to. You did not take the normal legal avenue to then become U.S. citizens. We are revoking that. And just because Biden did it don't mean that we're not going to undo it. You do not have protection. I invite you guys to go and self-deport and then come in here the legal way. And if you do not self-deport, what's going to happen is if we catch you, you will not be able to come over here legally. You will not be able to seek citizenship. You will not be able to get a green card. You will be rejected at every turn, and we will find you. We will absolutely find you. So, if you have no idea what that is, you can go and look that up. CHNB. It was something that was created under the Biden administration that had no visibility from the people. Nobody talked about it. Nobody had a conversation about it. It was nothing that was ever spoke about, but it was something that Biden used to fly illegal migrants over into the United States of America.
The policy was paused by President Trump after he took office. The current administration says those who fail to self-deport will face arrest and removal by deportation agents. CBS News immigration and politics reporter Camilo Montoya Galvez joins us now in Washington for more. Camilo, explain to us what protections this program provides and why the Trump administration is revoking it.
Good evening, Lindsay. The more than 500,000 people from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela who arrived into the U.S. under this Biden-era program all have legal status. They have work permits and deportation protections that typically last for 2 years. And the Biden administration admitted them into the country under the premise that it was offering them a legal alternative to come to the U.S. that would dissuade them and discourage them, Lindsay, from crossing the U.S.-Mexico border illegally. But now the Trump administration...
Did you hear what he said? It was a way for him to get them over here so that they wouldn't have to cross over to the border illegally. So they were coming over here either way. They were coming over here either way. And either they were going to cross over to the border illegally or they can get that free flight from the Biden administration and then get dumped at a town that the Biden administration felt like was best for them. They were coming over either way. And so they basically used a loophole that allowed for him to say, you know what? Not only that, while you're on a plane, we're going to get you a work permit. We can possibly get you a driver's license and an ID, regardless of what your status is, regardless of where you came from, regardless of what your background and your history is. We are going to get you over here inside of the United States of America.
Is saying that this program was an abuse of the president's immigration authority, that it was plagued by fraud, and that it should be terminated. And in fact, in the next 30 days, that is indeed what the Department of Homeland Security will be doing. Not only will it be terminating the program officially, but it will also terminate the legal status of the more than 500,000 people who already arrived to the country under that policy. And they have 30 days starting tomorrow, Lindsay, to essentially pack their bags, voluntarily depart the country through a smartphone app system that the administration has set up for self-deportations,
CB1 Home app?
Or they will face removal and arrest by immigration and customs enforcement, according to DHS.
Camilo, the U.S. has also
Home
launched new accusations against detained Colombia protest leader Mahmoud Khalil. What do we know?
Well, when this arrest initially happened, the government alleged that the reason it was detaining and seeking to deport Mr. Khalil was because the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, had invoked a rarely used law in the immigration code that allows the government to seek the deportation of non-citizens, including lawful permanent residents like Mr. Khalil, on the ground that their presence here in the U.S. and their activities here threaten the foreign policy interests of the country. But now the government is revealing that it has filed new civil immigration charges against Mr. Khalil. Not only are they arguing now, Lindsay, that he threatens the foreign policy interests of the country, but that he also orchestrated immigration fraud because they're saying he failed to disclose his involvement in work at the British Embassy in Beirut and the United Nations Refugee Agency for Palestinian Migrants and Refugees, and that he did not disclose that in his green card application. And so they are now accusing him of immigration fraud too, Lindsay, and saying that that is another ground to deport him from the country, rather.
Camilo, a new federal lawsuit says the Trump administration is looking to arrest and deport another Columbia University student involved in pro-Palestinian protests. What do we know?
A new lawsuit in federal court today says that ICE is seeking to detain and potentially deport a 21-year-old Columbia University student involved in pro-Palestinian protests, and that it has already visited her parents' residence, and that this woman is a 21-year-old native of South Korea who came to the U.S. when she was 7. She has lived here most of her life, Lindsay, and according to her lawyers, ICE is targeting her because of her involvement in protests and also citing the same law that is underpinning the arrest of Mr. Khalil. And so this is yet.
I wish that I was able to. Actually, I don't wish it because I don't plan on causing a disruption to a country that I'm not native in, right? You got a green card, which means that you was not born here. You got a green card. You thought that you could circumvent the law. And because you thought that you had a green card, for whatever reason, you thought that you had the same rights as a person that became a U.S. citizen, and you don't. You don't. Imagine going into a country that you're not native to, and you go over there and you don't like something that they're doing, and you start to hit the streets, you start to become destructive, you start to have camp-ins, you start to have sit-ins, you start to have protests in those streets. Have y'all ever actually been out the country? Usually when you go out the country, you can't even go to Turks and Caicos and mistakenly leave a piece of ammunition or bullet in your backpack. You will get 10 years in jail if they catch you at the airport or they scan your backpack and it mistakenly has a piece of ammunition in it. You will go to jail for 10 years in Turks and Caicos. Whenever you go outside of the country, you're usually like really, really vigilant on making sure that you obey the law. A lot of times when I go outside of the country, I don't even drive. You can get a car that you can rent. You can go and get a rental vehicle in most places. But when I go outside of the country, I don't even drive. Because I want to make sure that I understand every aspect of the law. I don't want to get caught up in doing nothing. I don't want to get pulled over. I don't want to talk to a police officer. I don't want to be around a place where I can ultimately possibly even remotely get arrested. And I'm very, very careful on what I say, who I say it to, and what I'm saying. When you go out the country, when you go to Dubai, you go to these places, you don't get out of line. You make an adjustment. You do what they do. You make sure you abide by the law. You understand their culture, and you adapt accordingly. You do not in any way, shape, or form get out of line when you go into a different country. And you don't bring your culture over there either. You adapt to their culture.